Hello friends. Welcome to Current Affairs Review. Topic for today's video is Sri Lanka's crisis, a story of dissension. After a civil war that lasted more than 26 years and was eventually ended in 2009, Sri Lanka finally started to see economic development. However, it was uneven and was largely believed to be the cause of the current problem. As a result of the government's decision to lower taxes in 2019 in response to populist demands, the government exchequer lost $1.4 billion annually. Additionally, the state has relied too heavily on the uncertain industry of tourism for its financial support. The government has prohibited the use of fertilizers in the island nation in an effort to promote organic farming and to reduce the trade imbalance, as Sri Lanka is entirely dependent on imports for fertilizers. However, recent reforms in the agricultural sector have gone a little too far. Sri Lanka is blessed with stunning landscapes that draw a large number of tourists each year, but the lockdowns brought on by the pandemic and the series of explosions in 2019 have significantly reduced the number of tourists. The pandemic has affected economies all across the world, and as a result, remittances to countries like Sri Lanka have been significantly impacted. The island nation's economic growth was mostly fueled by foreign loans, like with any other rebuilding economy, but it was never able to pay back the debts. Sri Lanka is likewise a victim of China's debt trap diplomacy. The impact of the war in Ukraine has spread to Sri Lanka, where the price of crude oil, edible oil, and wheat has skyrocketed recently. This has had a significant impact on inflation and Sri Lanka's import bill. Due to the Rajpaksa family's role in resolving Sri Lanka's protracted civil war, they have a large following there. They were lauded as heroes by the dominant Sinhalese community, but as the calendars flipped, the Rajpaksas are now held responsible for the problem by the majority of Sri Lankans. With food inflation soaring as high as 80%, Sri Lanka stares at an acute food crisis where the United Nations estimates that nearly 5.7 million Sri Lankans are in dire need of humanitarian assistance, with 22% of the nation being deprived of consistent and assured access to sufficient and nutritious food. Inflation often involves both the cause and the effect, but in Sri Lanka, it spiraled out of control and plunged the country's economy into oblivion, reaching an all-time high of 60.8% in July 2022. The island is on the edge of its biggest crisis since independence as a result of the COVID-19 crisis, rising oil costs, and economic mismanagement, and the World Bank has issued a warning that at least a quarter of the population is in danger of falling below the poverty line. The crisis has caused a significant shortage of basic necessities including fuel, electricity, and cooking gas, forcing the finance minister to implore the government authorities to turn down all of the street lights in order to save energy. Due to widespread paper shortages and Sri Lanka's reliance on imports, many schools there have decided to postpone the academic exams indefinitely. Due to a shortage of life-saving medications, many hospitals were compelled to halt surgical procedures and laboratory testing, endangering the lives of numerous patients. The entire nation was furious and was out on the streets condemning the egregious misgovernance of the dictatorship. Protesters even barged into the residences of the president and the prime minister, compelling them to flee immediately. Many people have been compelled to leave the island because of the chaos there. To quell the boiling agitations, the government has resorted to using a lot of force, even against non-violent protesters. The boiling crisis in Sri Lanka has casted both positive and negative impacts on India. Firstly, the negative impacts. History has been a witness to the fact that whenever a crisis brewed in Sri Lankan, influx of Sri Lankan ethnic Tamils into the Indian mainland has followed. The majority of the investments made by Indians on the island are in industries like real estate, tourism, and lodging, but because these sectors have been so severely affected by the crisis, Indian investors are looking into a deep abyss. China is taking advantage of the crisis to grow its influence in Sri Lanka, and India is concerned about this trend because China has used the crisis as an opportunity to do so. Unexpectedly, Colombo port handles more than 30% of India's container traffic and 60% of its transshipment. As a result, the port's services being disrupted are harming India's marine trade. Now the positive impacts. The apparel industry accounts for 44% of the nation's exports. Since as the industry has been severely hit, importers are now preferring India in place of Sri Lanka. Tea plantations were hit by the power crisis. Indian tea producers are increasingly replacing the Sri Lankan producers. Similarly, international tourists are desisting from visiting the island and are rather finding new destinations like India, which is close by. Download material for this issue from our website. Please like and share this video. Please subscribe our channel and hit the bell icon to stay updated. Thank you.